the soul price. The conventional reinforcements' collapse echoed through the palace like breaking glass, a cascade of shattering power that Cassian felt even in the catacombs far below. The wards overhead weren't just failing, they were being consumed, torn apart by the very magic meant to strengthen them. Each magistrate's contribution fed directly into the Voidweaver's hunger, accelerating rather than preventing the kingdom's doom. "It's happening faster than Mordain predicted," Elena said, her voice tight as she checked her monitoring equipment. The crystalline resonance detector in her hand showed chaotic spikes, the magical field above them fragmenting in real time. The reinforcement isn't just failing, it's making everything worse. Cassian stood at the center of the chamber, void flame dancing between his fingers in controlled spirals. The corruption had spread further during his 4-minute working. Dark veins now traced geometric patterns across both temples and down his neck, visible even in the dim light. His eyes had gone completely black, no distinction between iris and pupil, reflecting the flame with an unsettling depth. "How long until complete collapse?" he asked, his voice carrying that clinical detachment that made Elena's chest tighten. 2 hours. She set down the detector. Its readings too chaotic to be useful anymore. Maybe 3 if we're extraordinarily lucky. The conventional working is feeding so much power to the Voidweaver that it's accelerating the timeline exponentially. Cassian nodded slowly, void flames still dancing across his fingers, as if he'd forgotten it was there. The corruption had altered his relationship with the magic. It no longer felt separate from him, no longer required conscious effort to maintain. It simply was. As natural as breathing, except he'd stopped noticing his own breathing hours ago. "Then we're out of time for measured practice," he said. "I need to make a choice now." Elena knew what he meant. They both did. The 73 crystallized souls waited in their alcoves around the chamber's perimeter, 3 centuries of preserved essence, knowledge, and power. The founding mages who had sealed the Voidweaver originally, their consciousness crystallized at the moment of their corruption's completion. Consuming them would grant Cassian their combined strength, their techniques, their understanding. It would also destroy the last fragments of his humanity. "Cassian, wait." She crossed to him, her hand finding his arm. His skin was cold, temperature at 94.2 degrees now, dropping steadily. "You promised you'd talk to me first, before you made that decision." "I'm talking to you now." He met her eyes, and she saw nothing in that black gaze that recognized the weight of what he was considering. "The mathematics are simple. 4 minutes of working time isn't sufficient. Even with essence cycling, I can't match 73 high magisters. But if I consume their souls, you'll become a monster." The words came out sharper than she intended. "Cassian, consuming souls is the darkest taboo in magical practice. It's not just forbidden, it's the line that separates mages from the things we fight against. And if I don't cross that line, the kingdom falls." He turned back to the void flame, studying its patterns with the same clinical interest he'd shown everything since the corruption deepened. "The Voidweaver will break free completely. Millions will die. The Shadow Veil will consume Thornhaven within days. And if you do cross it," Elena's voice shook. "What breaks free then? You keep talking about the mathematics, about efficiency and power ratios, but you're not calculating the cost to yourself, to who you are. Who I am is already gone." The void flame pulsed brighter, responding to his emotional state even as his voice remained flat. "I can't remember what food tastes like. I don't feel temperature anymore. My core body temperature is dropping toward death, and I barely notice. I'm forgetting Liana's face, Elena. The details are getting fuzzy." Elena's hand tightened on his arm. "You're not gone. Not yet. Yes, the corruption is advancing, but you're still you, still making choices, still capable of recognizing that some lines shouldn't be crossed." "Am I?" He finally looked at her fully, and something in that black gaze made her breath catch. "Because right now, consuming those souls feels logical, necessary. The resistance I should feel, the horror, the moral revulsion, it's not there anymore. I look at those crystallized essences, and I see resources, power sources, solutions to an equation." The void flame between his fingers flickered, casting dancing shadows across the ancient stone. In those shadows, Elena could almost see faces. The 73 mages who had stood in this chamber 3 centuries ago, who had made the same terrible choices Cassian was contemplating now. "Then let me be your horror," she said quietly. "Let me carry the moral weight you can't feel anymore. Because I'm telling you, Cassian, if you consume those souls, you won't just lose yourself. You'll lose the reason you're doing this. The kingdom doesn't need a weapon that can match the Voidweaver's power. It needs a hero who remembers why the kingdom is worth saving." Above them, another cascade of breaking wards sent tremors through the stone. Dust drifted from the ceiling as the palace's foundations shook. The conventional reinforcement was in its death throes, and when it finally collapsed completely, there would be nothing between Thornhaven and the Voidweaver's full attention. "Then what do you suggest?" Cassian asked, and Elena heard genuine question in his voice. Not sarcasm, not dismissal, but actual uncertainty. Some part of him still trusted her judgment more than his own. That fragment of connection was all she had left to work with. She moved to Kael Thornweave's memorial pillar, her hand resting on the cool stone. Kael's journal mentioned something, a technique the founding mages discovered late in their practice, multi-channel cycling, using multiple redirect paths simultaneously to spread the corruption burden across more essence structure. I read that section. Cassian's void flame condensed into a tight sphere, controlled and precise. 2 of the 3 magisters who attempted it burned out completely. The technique has a 66% fatality rate. But the one who succeeded, Elena pulled out the journal, flipping to the marked page. Magister Verena Dark Hollow. She achieved 18 minutes of sustained void flame using multi-channel cycling. 18 minutes, Cassian. That's nearly 5 times what you can do now. Still not enough to match 73 mages working in concert. No, but combined with what you've already learned, with essence cycling and the techniques from Kael's journal, she met his eyes, willing him to see the alternative she was offering. You might be able to seal the Voidweaver without destroying yourself completely, without consuming souls and losing the last fragments of who you are. Cassian was quiet for a long moment, the void flame pulsing in rhythm with his slowing heartbeat. Elena could see the calculation happening behind those black eyes, weighing probabilities, measuring risks, running the terrible mathematics of sacrifice and survival. "The fatality rate," he began, "is better than the certainty of losing yourself," she interrupted. Cassian, 2 out of 3 burned out attempting multi-channel cycling, but 3 out of 3 who consumed souls became monsters. At least this way, there's a chance you survive as yourself. Another tremor shook the chamber, stronger this time. Cracks appeared in the ceiling, thin lines spreading across stone that had stood for 3 centuries. The conventional reinforcement was failing catastrophically, and they both knew what that meant. 2 hours. Maybe less. "I need to practice it," Cassian said finally. "Now, before the wards collapse completely." The journal says it requires immense concentration, multiple simultaneous redirections of corrupted essence through different channels, all while maintaining the primary working. Kael described it as trying to conduct an orchestra where every instrument is trying to kill you. "Then I'd better start learning." The void flame in his hand split into 3 separate streams, each flowing in different directions. "Because if I can't master this technique in the next 2 hours, consuming souls becomes the only option left." Elena wanted to argue, to insist there had to be another way, but the mathematics were undeniable. 4 minutes of working time wasn't enough. 18 might be. The multi-channel cycling technique was dangerous, potentially fatal, but it represented a path that didn't require Cassian to cross the darkest line of magical practice. "Then we practice," she said, moving to her monitoring station. "But carefully. If you start to burn out, then I stop and we reassess." He met her eyes, and for just a moment she saw something human in that black gaze. Recognition. Trust. "I'm not going to throw myself away on a practice attempt, Elena. I promise." She nodded, swallowing against the tightness in her throat. "Show me what you can do." Cassian closed his eyes, and the void flame between his fingers began to change. Instead of a single controlled flow, it split into multiple streams, 3 at first, then 4, each moving in different patterns. The dark veins on his temples pulsed in rhythm with the magic, and Elena's instruments showed his essence structure straining under the complex working. "The key is creating separate circuits," he murmured, his voice distant and focused. "Each stream of corrupted essence needs its own redirect path, its own loop through uncorrupted channels. But they all have to remain connected to the primary working, synchronized but independent." The void flame danced in increasingly complex patterns, 4 streams becoming 5, then 6. Elena watched the corruption spread faster across his skin, the geometric patterns growing more pronounced. But his control remained steady, each stream precisely directed. "How does it feel?" she asked. "Like conducting an orchestra where every instrument is trying to kill me." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Kael was right about that. The corruption wants to spread chaotically, but I'm forcing it into organized patterns. It's fighting me every second. His essence readings spiked, and Elena saw the danger signs immediately. "Cassian, your burn rate—" "I know." Sweat beaded on his forehead despite his dropping core temperature. "But I'm maintaining it. 6 channels, all stable. This is what Dark Hollow achieved before she pushed to 18 minutes. She also practiced for weeks before attempting the full working. Then I'm going to have to be a faster learner." The void flame pulsed brighter, and Elena saw the moment his control began to slip. One of the redirect channels destabilized, corrupted essence bleeding out of its intended path. The geometric patterns on his skin flared, and Cassian gasped as the corruption surged through unchecked channels. "Stop!" Elena was at his side immediately, her hands on his shoulders. "Cassian, stop the working now!" The void flame collapsed, all 6 streams dissipating at once. Cassian swayed, and she caught him as his legs buckled. His skin was ice cold, temperature dropped to 93.8 degrees, and the dark veins had spread down his neck to his collarbone. "How long was that?" he asked, his voice weak. 2 minutes, 40 seconds. She helped him to the floor, his back against Theron's Silverlight's memorial pillar. "You matched Kael's best time, but Cassian, the corruption rate was nearly double what you had with simple essence cycling. If you'd maintained that for much longer, I would have burned out completely." He nodded, understanding. "Like the 2 magisters who failed. I felt it starting to happen. The channels couldn't handle the load. The corruption was spreading faster than I could redirect it." Elena's monitoring equipment showed readings that made her blood run cold. His essence structure had been strained to near breaking, multiple channels showing damage from the failed attempt. "You can't try that again, not without recovery time." "How much recovery time?" "At least 6 hours for your essence structure to stabilize." "We don't have 6 hours. Another tremor shook the chamber, and more cracks appeared in the ceiling. "We have 2 at most." They sat in silence for a long moment, the weight of impossible mathematics pressing down on them. 2 hours until the wards collapsed completely. 6 hours needed for recovery. A technique that required weeks of practice compressed into minutes, and always, waiting in their alcoves around the chamber's perimeter, the 73 crystallized souls that represented the darkest possible solution. "There might be a middle path," Cassian said finally, his voice thoughtful. "Not consuming all 73 souls, just one. Kael Thornweave's." Elena's breath caught. "Cassian, hear me out." He looked up at Kael's memorial pillar, the crystallized essence glowing faintly in its alcove. Kael was the leader, the one who developed most of these techniques. His knowledge, his experience with multi-channel cycling, if I could access that directly, I might be able to compress weeks of practice into minutes. "By consuming his soul," Elena said flatly. "By crossing the line. By crossing it once, with purpose and precision, instead of consuming all 73 in desperation." His black eyes met hers. "It's still wrong. Still taboo. But it's a middle path between losing myself completely and failing entirely." Elena wanted to refuse, to insist there had to be another way. But the mathematics were clear. The timeline was collapsing, and somewhere above them, the conventional reinforcement was in its final death throes, minutes away from complete, catastrophic failure. "If you do this," she said quietly, "you'll never be able to come back from it. Even one soul consumed, that's a line that can't be uncrossed. The corruption won't just be in your body anymore. It'll be in your spirit." "I know." He reached for her hand, and she took it despite the unnatural cold of his skin. but maybe that's the price. Maybe that's what it takes to save the kingdom. Not a hero who remains pure, but a weapon willing to become exactly what's necessary. Above them, the final cascade began. The conventional reinforcement shattered completely, and the wards that had protected Thornhaven for 3 centuries died in a wave of breaking light. Elena felt it through every magical sense she possessed. The sudden, terrible absence where protection had been, the cold void rushing in to fill the space. The Voidweaver's attention turned fully toward the capital, and the chamber grew colder. "Cassian," Elena whispered, "it's happening. The wards are gone." He stood slowly, his eyes on Kael Thornweave's crystallized essence. "Then I'm out of time for measured choices. The mathematics have resolved themselves." "Wait." She grabbed his arm. "Please, just wait 1 more minute. Think about what you're about to do." "I've thought about nothing else." He turned to face her fully, and she saw something terrible in his expression, not the clinical detachment she'd feared, but a profound sadness. "Elena, I love you. I need you to know that before I do this, before I become something that might not remember how to love." Tears burned in her eyes. "Then don't do it. Find another way." "There is no other way." He cupped her face gently, his cold fingers against her skin. "Remember me, will you? Not what I become, but who I was. Keep that in your notebook with all the other memories." Cassian. But he was already moving toward Kael's alcove, void flame gathering in his hands. The crystallized essence pulsed with ancient light, responding to his presence. 300 years of waiting, and now the moment had come. Elena watched helplessly as Cassian reached for the crystal, knowing that whatever happened next would change everything. The kingdom's salvation or its doom. The transformation of a hero into a weapon, or into something far worse. And deep in the Shadowvale wastes, the Voidweaver felt its prison walls shatter completely and began its march toward Thornhaven, patient and terrible, and finally, after 3 centuries of waiting, free.
Thanks for watching our stories. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more epic adventures. Thanks for watching our stories. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more epic adventures.